It's been a week that's been dominated, of course, by the Mandelson saga. The Prime Minister said that he regrets and apologises that he didn't get the information, that he made the wrong calls. But he's also saying that he hasn't done enough to, really, I guess, be held responsible for this. Do you think he should now face investigation by the Privileges Committee?
Yes, I do. I think we do need to ask many more questions, whether it's about him not following the advice of Simon Case, who was the Cabinet Secretary, who said you did need to get security vetting before you confirmed Mandelson in place, or his looking for a job for Matthew Doyle. I mean, there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered. But I think it's the overall approach of this government. I mean, you remember Boris Johnson, a bit of a rogue. People had sort of almost baked that in when they voted for him.
They expected he was.
They almost expected he was, not going to always tell the truth. And obviously he tripped up and quite rightly went, particularly over the scandal of Partygate. But I think, Keir Starmer ran, didn't he, as not Boris Johnson. He ran as someone who was going to be straight. You could trust his judgment. It wouldn't be chaotic. And there'd be change, and he's not delivered that. And I think that's why people are so, frustrated.
Do you think he needs to step down over this? Should he resign?
Well, I've already called for that, but I think now the Labour MPs have got to reflect really hard on this. The Prime Minister has not delivered the change. He's kept the chaos going. They've made so many bad mistakes, and not just on this, on the economy, on taxes. Frankly, I would argue on the relationship with Trump, which is in many ways behind the whole Mandelson saga. And I think that's damaged our economy and damaged our country. And they've been very timid on things like, rebuilding the relationship with Europe. So I think Labour MPs will probably say, look, he's not going to take us to victory. He's damaging the government and damaging the country.
Just on this call for him to resign specifically over this, because nobody's actually contradicting the Prime Minister's version of events, that he wasn't told about these findings, and also that he personally didn't put pressure on the Foreign Office. So, he sacked those people who he holds responsible for that. He shouldn't have to resign over that, should he?
Well, we have said that if he was shown to mislead Parliament, and one of the reasons I want the Privileges Committee to look at that is because I think there's still suspicions around that, to be frank.
But it has to be deliberate misleading, doesn't it? Well, it can't just be misleading because you didn't know something. That would be unfair, wouldn't it?
So let the Privileges Committee look at the detail, because I'm not convinced by some of the Prime Minister's answers, to be frank with you. But let's look. The Privileges Committee look at it.
No one's contradicted him, have they? So Ollie Robbins didn't contradict what his argument.
I still think there are a lot of questions. So I mentioned the fact that he didn't follow the advice of the Cabinet Secretary, Simon Case, which was, in December, before the appointment was confirmed, that security vetting should happen first. So there's a real question of whether he followed due process. He's telling Parliament he did follow due process. So there are some issues to be asked. But I think, frankly, for the country, I can't really speak for the Labour Party, but for the country, he's not really delivered on what he said he was delivered. And I think we have to move on. We have serious threats. We have the inflation, because of Trump's idiotic war, an economy that's failing. We need a change.
But some would say that is the risk of a change as well, right? That we do have this international conflict, that we do have inflation that is already ticking up and is expected to go higher, that, we're talking about jet fuel running out, for example. Is this really the time for a leadership contest that would be, by its nature, destabilising and distracting?
Well, Labour would have to, any new Labour leader would have to change policy in a quite significant way, because I think it's the policies that Keir Starmer is behind that have caused the problems. His relationship with Trump, his failed relationship with Trump, his inability to rebuild the relationship with Europe so much faster and deeper to deal with the cost of living.
And you're talking about that today as well, aren't you, with Trumpflation, as you're putting it?
Yeah, no, exactly. If you look at the Trumpflation, the increase in the cost of living that's hitting people, yes, it's hitting people at the pumps, with petrol and diesel prices. That's the obvious one now. It's going to get worse with energy prices and food prices. But actually, and people have missed this, it's hitting people in mortgages. So the fixed deals, 2-year deals on mortgage costs have gone up by a percentage point. Now, when you project that across the country, some people will see their mortgage bills over the year go up by thousands of pounds. That is the cost of Trump's idiotic war to millions of people.
I'm keen to talk about the local elections as well, because what we are seeing is the kind of fragmenting of politics, two-party system not happening anymore. So you'd think that was a huge opportunity, right, for other parties as well. But, the Lib Dems aren't necessarily benefiting. You're fifth place in the polls. If you look at, for example, you're the guy who's taken the Lib Dems from being the third party to being the fifth party.
No, we're the third party because we had our best result for 100 years at last general. But let me take your...
A lot's changed since that election, as you know.
Well, a lot's
right?
changed.
For all parties. Come on, this is sort of the point. You're not taking advantage of it.
Well, we keep winning in local elections. Last year, we were more council by-elections than any party. But let me take you to May, because we're going to do really well in May. You can look whatever poll you like, but we're going to make big gains. We're going to make gains off the Conservatives in places like Surrey and Sussex and Hampshire and Hertfordshire and Huntingdonshire. We're going to make gains off Labour in London, in Birmingham, in Newcastle. I think we're going to do really well in Scotland. So I think you will see on May the 8th and the 9th, as the results come through, Liberal Democrats making gains both from Tories and from Labour and across the country.
Do you take responsibility as leader for taking your party to third place in the polls to fifth place in the polls consistently over this year? I
take responsibility for our best result in 100 years under my leadership.
Because in a kind of weak field, it feels like you're the one who's underperforming.
I don't think we are in elections. So you can take polls. Before the last general election, people said, well, you're not performing well in the polls. And we got our best result for 100 years and 72 MPs. Last year, people were saying, well, look at the polls. We won more council by-elections than any other party. So the polls that matter are when voters vote and they go to the ballot boxes. And so far, under my leadership, we've kept winning. I'm arguing to you that in May, we'll have our 8th year in a row of consecutive gains in local elections. That's never happened before. And by the end of this Parliament, we're going to be one of the 2 biggest parties in local government. Let me say that again. By the end of this Parliament, we'll keep winning and be one of the 2 biggest parties in local government. And when you go into the general election with 72 MPs and being one of the biggest parties in local government, we will be crucial to the outcome of the next general election.
Just finally, I'm hearing rumours about the Greens and the Lib Dems doing, I guess, kind of unofficial deals in these elections.
I haven't heard those at all.
Campaigning in some wards, kind of carving them up so you don't split the vote, so you take more vote, you've got more chance of unseating Labour in these wards. You're saying you haven't picked this up at all?
Not at all. I mean, I've seen as where we're going head-to-head with the Greens in some places. But it is true that many of the areas that we can really win are areas where the Greens are weak. In Surrey, in Sussex, in Hampshire, in Hertfordshire, the Greens are nowhere. And in a lot of the seats that we can win off Labour, the Greens are nowhere. In places like Merton, for example, in London. And it just happens that they're nowhere strong. And so lots of people talk about, different parties doing well in other areas. In the areas where we're competing, we're doing really well.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Ed Davey speaking to us there. Thank you very much.